Desire is the beginning of all creation, and yet most people look upon it as something to be resisted or denied. They have been taught that to want is to show weakness, that to long for something is to reveal lack. But the truth is entirely different. Desire is not weakness. It is the movement of life itself pressing forward in you, asking to be born into form. When you feel a genuine desire rise from the depths of your being, it is not a random fancy or a fleeting mood. It is the very voice of God announcing the next chapter of your destiny. The moment you sense it, you are being invited to embody it. Too often people smother these impulses with doubt or reasoning. They say it is impractical, it is too grand, it is not for someone like me. Yet the desire itself is the permission, the evidence that it already belongs to you. Think of the way a seed contains within it the entire blueprint of a tree. The moment the seed exists, the tree already is in potential. Your desires work the same way. They are not empty wishes. They are seeds of destiny. If you treat them as if they were foolish or impossible, you are simply leaving the seed in a dark drawer to wither. But if you accept that the desire itself is sacred, you begin to nourish it with attention and imagination. In time, it will grow into visible reality just as surely as a seed placed in fertile soil will grow into a living tree. To feel desire is to be shown the possibility of life waiting to manifest through you. People often ask how they can know if a desire is truly meant for them. The answer is simple. If the longing will not leave you, if it returns again and again despite every attempt to silence it, then it is yours. Passing whims and idle curiosities do not linger in the heart. Only genuine desires continue to resurface until you either accept them or bury them in disbelief. The very persistence of a desire is proof that it belongs to you. Life never tempts you with something that cannot be expressed through you. When you recognize this, you stop doubting whether you are worthy of what you want. You begin to see that what you desire has been desiring you all along. The tragedy of life is not that people want too much, but that they settle for too little. They dismiss their highest longings and accept conditions that do not reflect who they truly are. They do not realize that desire is God's gift, not to tease them, but to awaken them. When a desire burns in your heart, it is already granted in the unseen. Your task is not to question whether it is possible, but to assume it is already yours, and to live in the feeling of fulfillment. In that assumption, the desire is fed, and the world must eventually bear witness to it. Now let us turn to the second great key. Want is not weakness, it is law. Many people believe that wanting something reveals a gap, a lack, a hole in their life. They are told to suppress their wants and to be satisfied with whatever comes. Yet everything that exists in this world is the result of someone daring to want it strongly enough. Every invention, every discovery, every new idea was first a desire in someone's imagination. Want is the creative force at work in you. It is not begging or pleading. It is commanding. To want is to decree. The moment you feel a desire, the law of life begins to move to fulfill it. The desire is the decree. Whether it comes to fruition depends on how you treat it. If you doubt it, if you waver, if you say perhaps someday, but not now, you are canceling the decree. If you cling to it, nourish it, assume it, you are allowing the law to bring it into form. Every event in your life can be traced back to some assumption that you once held. You may not have recognized it at the time, but your world is the mirror of your inner longings. Consider how a magnet draws iron filings without effort. The filings are compelled to arrange themselves according to the unseen pattern of the magnetic field. So it is with your wants. The moment you set them clearly within, the outer world begins to arrange itself in harmony with them. People, circumstances, and events begin to move toward you in ways you could never have orchestrated consciously. This is not chance or accident. It is the law of assumption at work. Many shrink from wanting boldly because they fear disappointment. They say it is safer to expect little, so they will not be hurt when nothing comes. But by expecting little they decree little, and life obliges them with meager returns. To want with boldness is to trust the law. It is to declare that the unseen world is more real than the evidence of the senses. When you want with conviction, you are writing the script of your own life. To deny your wants is to surrender your pen and allow the world to write your story for you. You must come to see that there is no shame in wanting. The word itself has been twisted to imply greed or selfishness. But true wanting is simply alignment with the life that seeks expression through you. There is no greed in a rose wanting to bloom, no selfishness in a bird longing to sing. The rose and the bird are fulfilling their nature. In the same way, when you feel a desire within you, it is your nature pressing to be revealed. To deny it is to deny life itself. Think of how a child wants without hesitation. A child does not question if the toy is too expensive or if they are worthy of it. They simply know they want it, and in their wanting there is no doubt. Their imagination wraps around the toy as if it were already theirs. Adults lose this purity of wanting because they are trained to measure everything against logic and circumstance. But life does not respond to logic. It responds to assumption. When you return to that pure state of wanting, unashamed and unwavering, you are again in harmony with the law. The danger is not in wanting but in wavering. To want one thing today and another tomorrow, to assume your desire in one moment and deny it in the next, is to scatter your creative power. The law cannot bring forth a harvest when the seed is constantly being pulled from the soil. Steadfastness is the key. Once you have recognized a genuine desire, cling to it with determination. Assume it as already fulfilled. Nourish it with your imagination each day until it becomes more real to you than the outer facts of life. Then the world has no choice but to yield it to you. Want is law because the universe is structured to obey assumption. Your assumption is your decree, and your decree is carried out without fail. The only question is whether you decree deliberately or carelessly. Most people do not realize they are always wanting, always decreeing. They speak of what they fear, of what they lack, of what they hope never happens. And in doing so they are declaring those very conditions. Life does not discriminate between what you call positive and negative. It simply reflects back to you the assumptions you hold with feeling. If you want misery, you will have misery. If you want joy, you will have joy. Therefore the wise person learns to want consciously. They guard their desires as precious seeds, choosing them carefully and tending them faithfully. They understand that to want is not to hope but to claim. When they declare inwardly, I want this, they are truly saying, I decree this. And because the law never fails, their decree must come to pass. The world tells you that to want is to expose yourself to disappointment. But the truth is that disappointment only comes when you doubt the law. When you accept that want is law, you stop measuring your desires against outer evidence. You no longer ask, how could this ever happen? You rest in the knowing that it already has happened in the unseen and must be revealed in time. This is the power of assumption. This is why you always get what you want. You do not alter the world by wrestling with its appearances. The outer world is only the shadow, and the shadow cannot be changed directly. To try to fight circumstances with effort and argument is like trying to rearrange the reflection in a mirror without touching the face that casts it. Real change begins in the hidden chamber within. This inner chamber is your imagination, and it is there that the seeds of every event, every meeting, every experience are first sown. When you close your eyes and dare to see yourself as you long to be, when you allow that image to take root and feel its reality, you are shaping the invisible substance from which the visible world is made. The great mistake people make is believing that the imagination is a place for idle play or fantasy with no consequence. Yet the imagination is the creative workshop of God. What you accept and persist in inwardly must sooner or later project itself outwardly. The secret chamber is not distant, nor is it reserved for mystics or saints. It is with you always, available in every quiet moment when you turn within. There you are, free from the judgments of the world, free from the opinions of others, free from the limitations of logic and fact. There you are, the master craftsman of your destiny. Imagine a sculptor chiseling away at marble. The world only sees the finished statue, but long before the first strike of the hammer, the sculptor saw the form complete in the mind's eye. It was finished within before it appeared without. In the same way, every life situation is first completed in imagination before it emerges as fact. If you neglect the inner chamber, the outer world will be shaped by random impressions and careless assumptions. But if you deliberately fashion the inner scene, giving it vivid detail and living feeling, the outer world must conform to that inner blueprint. The inner chamber is a place of silence and stillness. You may not always see results immediately, but do not mistake the delay for failure. Just as a seed takes time beneath the soil before it breaks through the ground, so do your inner assumptions take time to become visible. Patience and persistence are required. Each time you return to your inner chamber and rehearse the scene of your wish fulfilled, you water the seed. Each time you refuse to contradict that inner vision with fear or doubt, you strengthen the roots. And when the time is right, the plant emerges, not because you forced it but because you allowed it. Most people spend their lives reacting to appearances, chasing after changes in the outer world while neglecting the source within. They pray for circumstances to shift while still clinging inwardly to the image of lack or failure. They labor outwardly and then wonder why their results vanish like smoke. The secret is to reverse the order. Work first in the inner chamber. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Carry it within you as if it were already true. Then allow the outer world to rearrange itself naturally around that assumption. In this way, your effort is not wasted in struggle, for the change comes from the root, not the shadow. This brings us to the great power of faith. Faith is not blind hope or vague optimism. Faith is the capacity to see the invisible and to insist upon it until it becomes visible. It is the inner conviction that what you have imagined is more real than what your senses report. Faith does not argue with facts, but simply declares that a higher fact is already established in the unseen. Consider the farmer who plants seed in the soil. He does not dig it up each day to check if it is growing. He knows the process is at work beneath the surface even though the eye sees nothing. His faith in the unseen action of the soil allows him to wait in confidence for the harvest. So it must be with your desires. The moment you plant them in imagination and assume their reality, you must rest in faith that the unseen world is already at work. To doubt because you do not yet see results is like tearing up the seed before it can sprout. Faith is not passive. It is a disciplined act of vision. It requires you to look beyond appearances and to hold steadily to the inner image. When your senses scream that nothing is changed, faith calmly replies that the change is already accomplished within. When the world insists that your desire is impossible, faith answers that with God all things are possible, and God is your own imagination at work. This inner certainty is not dependent on outer confirmation. Indeed, it is the persistence of faith in the absence of evidence that compels the evidence to appear. Many confuse faith with hope. Hope longs for a better future but admits uncertainty. It says perhaps one day it will come to pass. Faith is altogether different. Faith knows. It walks as though the desired state were already real. It does not wait for proof to act. It acts from the proof of inner conviction. To hope is to postpone. To have faith is to live now in the fulfillment. And because life reflects your inner state, the outer world cannot help but mirror that faith. There is a story of a traveler crossing a desert at night. He carries a lantern that lights only a few steps ahead, yet he continues walking with confidence. He cannot see the entire path, but he trusts that each step will reveal the next. This is faith. You do not need to know the whole journey. You only need to know that the desire is already yours in the unseen, and that each step you take in assumption will reveal the way forward. Faith is creative vision applied with persistence. It is the refusal to be shaken by appearances. It is the knowledge that the inner chamber where you already live your desire is more real than the outer world that has not yet caught up. When you cultivate this faith, you are no longer at the mercy of circumstance. You are no longer tossed about by the evidence of the senses. You become the master of your world because you understand that what is unseen rules what is seen. The outer world is always late to the party. It shows you yesterday's assumptions, yesterday's beliefs, yesterday's states of consciousness. To demand instant outer proof is to misunderstand the law. The law is exact and unerring, but it operates from within to without. Faith is the bridge that holds you steady during the gap between assumption and manifestation. When you walk in faith, you are not swayed by the delay. You know the result is certain, for you live already in the end. Faith does not require strain. It is not about clenching your fists or forcing yourself to believe. It is a quiet knowing, a calm confidence that rests in the unseen reality. You cultivate it by daily practice in the inner chamber, by rehearsing the scene of fulfillment until it becomes natural, until it feels more familiar than your current state. When the assumption feels natural, faith is automatic. You no longer question whether it will happen. You simply know that it has already happened in the unseen and must appear. This is why faith is seeing the invisible. It sees beyond the veil of appearances. It recognizes that the world is but a canvas painted by the imagination. It refuses to bow before the evidence of the senses when that evidence contradicts the inner vision. Faith is loyalty to the unseen reality, and loyalty to the unseen is what brings it into sight. Every event, every face, every circumstance that comes into your life is a reflection of what you carry within. The world is a mirror, not an independent force acting against you. If you are confronted with hostility, it is because some assumption of hostility has been entertained within. If you find yourself surrounded by kindness and opportunity, it is because you have entertained those assumptions instead. The outer world has no power to dictate to you. It only reflects what you accept as true of yourself. This is why some people move through life effortlessly receiving favor, while others constantly meet resistance. It is not chance. It is not luck. It is the law of reflection at work, showing you the content of your own consciousness. It may be difficult at first to accept that others are not truly the cause of your conditions. It seems easier to blame the world, to point to circumstances, to accuse people of standing in your way. Yet to blame is to deny your own power. The mirror does not create the image, it only reflects it. To be angry at the reflection is to miss the point entirely. If you wish to see a smiling face in the mirror, you must smile first. The same law applies to your life. If you desire respect, you must assume yourself to be worthy of respect within. If you desire abundance, you must assume yourself to be abundant within. The world then has no choice but to echo your assumption. This understanding places tremendous responsibility upon you, but with it comes freedom. As long as you believe the world is separate from you, you remain its victim. But when you recognize it as your mirror, you reclaim your authority. You no longer fear circumstances because you know they are but reflections, and reflections can change the moment you change your inner image. You become the cause instead of the effect. This is why transformation begins not with effort directed outward, but with quiet inner assumption. The outer world, like a faithful servant, simply ranges itself around your inner decree. If you find yourself surrounded by lack, it is because lack has been the image entertained within. You may not have consciously chosen it, but by repeating thoughts of insufficiency, by imagining defeat, by fearing the worst, you have painted the image on the canvas of your mind, and the world has mirrored it back. The good news is that the mirror is impartial. It will reflect any image you give it. The moment you dare to change the picture within, the reflection must change accordingly. Nothing is fixed except your unwillingness to assume differently. Think of a play upon a stage. The actors move, the scenes shift, and the story unfolds. But behind it all is the script that guides the action. Your assumptions are the script. The world merely performs according to the lines you have written. If you wish to see a different performance, you do not scold the actors. You revise the script. In the same way, if you wish for a new life, you revise your assumptions. The world, being only a mirror, will quickly adopt the new lines and play them before your eyes. This brings us to the final key, which is the boldest of all. You must live as though it were true. It is not enough to occasionally daydream or lightly imagine. You must embody the state of your fulfilled desire here and now. You must walk as the one you wish to be, speak from that state, think from that state, feel from that state, until it becomes your natural dwelling place. To wait for outer evidence before assuming the state is to reverse the law. The law does not work that way. The outer cannot precede the inner. The inner must come first. Living as though it were true does not mean pretending in a shallow sense. It means entering so fully into the assumption that it becomes more real to you than the current facts of life. It means feeling yourself already successful even if the bank account says otherwise. It means walking in love and security even if your outer relationships appear strained. When you hold to the inner reality with persistence, the outer world has no choice but to conform. You are not deceiving yourself. You are aligning yourself with the higher truth that is already established in imagination. To live from the end requires courage because it demands that you ignore appearances. The senses will insist that nothing has changed. The world will try to pull you back into old patterns of thought. But if you remain faithful to your inner assumption, the change is inevitable. The law does not fail. You do this by constant practice, by returning again and again to the feeling of the wish fulfilled until it becomes second nature. Imagine a person training to play an instrument. At first their fingers stumble, the notes sound awkward, and the melody is unclear. But with persistence, practice turns effort into ease, and soon they play without thought. So it is with assumption. At first it may feel forced or unnatural to live as though your desire were already fulfilled. But the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Eventually you no longer try to assume. You simply are. At that point the world has already begun to shift to match your new state. Living as though it were true also means refusing to speak against your desire. Words are powerful affirmations of state. If you claim to assume wealth yet constantly complain of poverty, you are contradicting yourself. If you claim to assume health yet continually dwell on sickness, you are undoing your own work. To live from the end is to guard your words, your thoughts, your feelings, so that they consistently reflect the state of the wish fulfilled. Every time you speak as though it were already true, you strengthen the assumption and draw it closer into manifestation. This practice does not require strain or pretense. It requires sincerity. You simply ask yourself, if it were already done, how would I feel? How would I act? How would I carry myself in the world? Then you begin to embody those answers now. The transformation begins subtly. Perhaps you carry yourself with more confidence. Perhaps you speak with more certainty. Perhaps you find yourself more at peace. These small shifts are not empty. They are the very substance of the new state taking form. The world must recognize and echo them. You cannot wait for permission from the outer world to assume the new identity. The world does not grant permission. It only reflects what you have already assumed. If you wait in vain. You must begin now. You must claim the state in imagination and walk in it, even if no one else sees it yet. You must dare to live in the end boldly, knowing that the law will not fail to support you. The outer world may resist at first, but persistence wears down resistance. The mirror must eventually show the image you hold most faithfully. To live as though it were true is to trust the unseen more than the seen. It is to rest in the certainty that imagination creates reality. It is to walk with the quiet confidence that your inner decree has already been accepted by the law, and that its manifestation is inevitable. It is to know that what you desire has already been given the moment you assumed it. The waiting is only the world catching up to what you have already declared. When you live this way, you discover a freedom that others cannot understand. You are no longer bound by the tyranny of appearances. You are no longer tossed about by circumstance. You carry within you the seed of every future, and you know that by assuming and persisting you will see it unfold. The world becomes your stage, your mirror, your canvas, and you the artist painting with the brush of imagination. To live as though it were true is to step into the role of creator. No longer the victim of circumstance, but the author of destiny.